Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be sharing 3 all new, super easy Easter DIYs using my Cricut Maker 3. I do want to thank Cricut so much for sponsoring today's video. Now let's go ahead and get right into it. First up is DIY number 1, and I'm going to be starting in Cricut Design Space to show you how I create my design. I'm just going to be going over to images, and for this one I'm typing out bunny because I know that I want to be using a bunny image. Cricut Design Space has so many to choose from, and I've already gone through and picked out the one that I'm going to be using today, and I've already bookmarked it. So here I'm just going to be showing you which bunnies I have bookmarked, and then the one that I'm using is actually made by a creator here on Cricut Design Space, and you can follow her. Her images are on her board, which is on the Beach Boutique, and she has tons of really cute designs. So I'm just going to be using one of her bunnies, and once I have it selected, I'm just adding it to my canvas. Once it's added to my canvas, I'm just going to be resizing it to just under 4.5 inches in height, and then I'm going to be using my Maker 3 to cut the design. And for this one, I'm going to be using a mat because I'm going to be using a scrap piece of vinyl, and I am using my 12 by 12 mat. And then for this one, the material I'm using is my Smart Removable Vinyl. The color of vinyl that I'm using is just black, and once the machine has cut out my design, I'm then going to be using one of my Cricut tools to weed out the vinyl. Once my vinyl is all ready to go, I'm using a piece of Cricut transfer tape to get it transferred onto the tape. And then before I place it on anything, I am going to be using this sign from Hobby Lobby that I got on clearance, and I thought it would be perfect to transform. I'm also going to be using a piece of this flower paper. This paper is also from Hobby Lobby. And the first thing I needed to do was just cut the paper down to size. So here I've already measured it, and I'm just going to be marking off on the back of the paper exactly the size that I need to cut. Then to cut my paper, I'm just going to be using my Cricut trimmer. After my paper is all cut down, I'm using a paintbrush to apply some Mod Podge on the back of the paper, and then I'm just going to be placing it right in the center of my sign and using my fingers to press out any of the bubbles and make sure that all of the edges are pressed down. I'm then going to be using this unfinished wood square, and this square is 4.5 inches by 4.5, and I'm going to be painting it with my Waverly chalk paint in the color Ivory. Once the paint was all dry, it was then time for me to transfer my bunny face onto the front. So here I'm just doing that with one of my Cricut scraper tools, and then once the bunny was all applied, I'm gonna be attaching it using some hot glue to the center of my sign with the flowers. Here is my picture all finished. It was such an easy project. I was able to make this in just a couple of minutes, and it cost me barely anything, and it looks super high-end, like I would have bought this in a retail store. Moving right into DIY number 2, for this one, I'm going to start in Design Space once again to show you how I created my design. I'm going over to Images, and this time I'm typing out the word bunny in the search bar. Bunnies, I'm sorry, and it's going to pull up all of the bunnies, and there's again tons and tons in Design Space. I've already bookmarked the ones that I like, and it's this one here. It's by another creator on Design Space, and her name is Okadi SVG. So I'm going to be using this image here. I'm selecting it and adding it to my canvas. You can see there's 3 bunnies, but I only want to use one. So on the right hand side, I just did the drop down arrow, and I'm hiding the 2 bunnies that I don't want to cut out. So then once I have my bunny that I want, I'm going to be resizing him and then duplicating him twice so I can cut 3 bunnies out at one time. Then I'm going to just make sure that they are for my Cricut Maker 3. I did make it, and this time I'm doing them on a 12 by 24 mat, and I do need to mirror the bunnies this time because I'm going to be using some fabric and I want them mirrored. So for this one, for the materials, I'm just going to be searching the materials in Design Space. And this, I know I'm going to be using cotton. So I typed out cotton and then just selected that I'm using a cotton bonded fabric. Before I cut anything out, I do need to bond my fabric. I'm using this really pretty blue fabric with flowers, and it is from Hobby Lobby. I've already ironed it, and I'm going to be flipping it to the back side. I'm going to be bonding it with this Heat and Bond Ultra Hold, and this is for no-sew projects. And I'm just going to be following the directions that it says on the packaging. So you can see it comes in just this like paper sheet, and I'm going to be cutting it down to the size of my fabric. It has an adhesive side, and then the paper side is on the back. You're going to want to place the adhesive side onto your fabric with the paper side up. And then once I have it all set on my fabric, I am going to be using my Cricut mini press to adhere it onto my fabric. It says on the packaging that it takes about 2 seconds in each area, that you use a medium heated iron. Now you can use any kind of iron or your large heat press, but I'm just choosing to do my mini press on this one. So once I have it all bonded, I'm going to be placing my fabric side down onto one of my strong grip Cricut mats. I did have to trim it down a little bit because it was a little bit too large for my mat, but once I have it all smoothed down onto my mat, it is then ready to be cut out. Since I'm using bonded fabric, I am going to be using my Cricut bonded fabric blade. The one I have in my Maker 3 in Housing B is my fine point blade, so I'm just going to be removing that and then placing in my bonded fabric blade and securing it into Housing B, and then cutting out my bunnies on my bonded fabric. My bunnies are now all cut out. I'm then going to be removing the paper backing on all 3 of them. Then they are all ready to be ironed on. I am going to be making a pillow. So for this, I'm going to be using this pillow cover that came from Target, and I've had it forever and I just haven't been using it, so I thought it would be perfect to create an Easter pillow with it. I'm placing all 3 of my bunnies on the front center of my pillow cover and just making sure they're exactly where I want them to be before I start ironing them down. I am using my mini Cricut heat press, and I started with the center bunny first, and then I moved on to the other bunnies just to make sure that they are all centered. I then thought it would be really cute to add 3 of these little white pom-poms for tails on the bunnies, and for these I just used some hot glue and glued all 3 of them down. I then wanted to add some more detail, so I'm using this really thin rope and I'm creating a really simple bow. I did do 3 of them for each bunny, and then once I had the bows made, I'm just going to be hot gluing them right underneath the bunny's neck. I just think this added such a cute detail, and for the very last step, I ended up adding a pillow insert to finish off my pillow. This is what the pillow looks like all finished. I think it looks so high-end. It was super easy to make, and for a pillow like this, you would pay so much money in a retail store, and I just used materials I already had. Now for the third and final project today, I'm going to be starting in Design Space once again, and then I just went over to text, and this time I'm typing out welcome, and then I'm adding a second text and typing out the word Peeps. I'm making a welcome Peeps sign for Easter. I'm then going to be changing the welcome font to a font called Farmhouse Christmas. So once I have that changed, I'm then changing the Peeps font to a font called Grow Over. So I really liked these fonts together and just thought they were really cute. I'm then just resizing both of the words. I'm then going to be adding an image. So I went over to images, and in the search bar, I'm typing out the word Peeps. This is going to pull up lots of different images in Design Space, and for the sake of the video, I already have the one that I'll be using in today's video bookmarked. So here I'm just going to go over to that with my bookmarked things. It is by a creator, Elizabeth C. She has tons of really cute designs, so I'm going to be using her Peeps design today for my project. So I'm going to select it and add that image to my canvas, and then just resize it down. I'm just making sure that it will fit between my welcome and Peeps words. Once I have that all resized, I'm going over to the right hand side and dropping down the arrow, and I'm going to be just hiding the eyes that are on the Peeps because I don't want to use them for my design. So next I'm going to be just going to make it, and I am going to be doing this one on a 12 by 12 mat. I do have 6 different cuts because all of my little Peeps are going to be different colors. So I'm just going to be selecting that, and I am going to be using removable Smart Cricut vinyl for this. The colors of vinyl that I used were 2 different shades of pink. I used a purple. I also used a yellow, a teal, and then for the words, I used black vinyl. After my images were cut out, I then used my Cricut tool to weed out all of the vinyl. I'm then going to be getting my sign ready that I'm going to be placing the vinyl on. It's this wood round from Hobby Lobby, and I just painted it with my Waverly chalk paint in the color Ivory. Once the paint was all dry, I then transferred my welcome word to the front center of my sign, and then I did the purple Peep right in the center underneath the welcome word, and then I did the other Peeps on each side of the purple one. I like to start with the middle one first just to make sure that everything is nice and centered, and then I added the Peeps word right underneath my Peeps. I then added 5 different colors of ribbon. I just had random ribbon in my craft stash and decided to use a bunch of different colors. I then gathered the strips of ribbon together in the middle and tied them off with a strand of jute. I'm then going to be hot gluing them right above my welcome word. And then I decided it would be really cute to add some flowers. So the flowers that I'm using, I believe, are from either Michael's or Hobby Lobby, and I'm just hot gluing them around the center of the ribbon. I thought my ribbon strands were a bit long, so I ended up cutting them down quite a bit on a diagonal, and then I just needed to add a hanger to my sign to finish it off. I'm just using a piece of jute, and I used my staple gun to secure it to the back. This is what the sign looks like all finished. I think it turned out so cute. I love all of the colors together on this, and again, it was super easy to do. I hope that you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed, I hope that you will consider subscribing, and I would love to hear in the comments down below which project was your favorite. And I do want to thank Cricut so much for sponsoring today's video. Thank you so much for watching.